And tonight, there is more proof that the highest levels of the U.S. government were told that the Benghazi attack was carried out by an al-Qaeda-linked terrorist less than 2 hours after the assault began. Now, that information was included in an email sent by the State Department and officials to nearly 400 members of the Obama administration, including aides that were inside the White House Situation Room. Now, the first of 3 emails obtained by Fox News was sent just after 4 p.m. Washington time on September the 11th, and even that memo describes that, quote, approximately 20 armed people fired shots and that explosions were also heard at the compound. Then, 2 hours later, at 6:02 p.m. Washington time, another email informs the president's national security team that an al-Qaeda-affiliated group known as Ansar al-Sharia has claimed responsibility for the Benghazi attack. Again, that's 6:02 p.m. on the very day the terrorists carried out a raid that killed 4 Americans. In other words, the White House was immediately told that al-Qaeda was involved in this horrific event. But for some reason, the president, his Secretary of State, didn't want you, the American people, to know the truth. They wanted us all to think that al-Qaeda died along with Osama bin Laden. So what do? They lied to you, they lied to us, and they told us that an American ambassador, the first killed in 30 years, and 3 of his colleagues were murdered because of a YouTube movie trailer. Now let's take a look at what the White House press secretary told the world 2 days after the administration officials informed via email that this was a pre-planned attack carried out by a sophisticated terrorist organization.
This is a fairly volatile situation, and it is in response not to United States policy, not to, obviously, the administration, not to the American people. It is in response to a video, a film that we have judged to be reprehensible and disgusting, that in no way justifies any violent reaction to it. But this is not a case of protests directed at the United States writ large or at U.S. policy. This is in response to a video that is offensive and to Muslims. We have no information to suggest that it was a pre-planned attack.
All right, so did you hear what he just said? He said the administration had no information, none, to suggest that this was a pre-planned attack. And yes, 2 hours after it began, al-Qaeda claimed responsibility. So that was the big lie on September the 14th. Now you fast forward a few days later, and here's what we were told 1 week after the assault.
Our initial information, and that includes all information, we saw no evidence to back up claims by others that this was a pre-planned or premeditated attack. That we saw evidence that it was sparked by the reaction to this video. And that is what we know thus far, based on the evidence, concrete evidence, not supposition, concrete evidence that we have thus far.
All right. Now, that is a blatant lie because we now have proof that the, quote, of initial information that was delivered to the White House was that this was an act of terror. They knew within hours. In addition to all of this, Fox has learned that the 2 Navy SEALs who were killed at the annex 1 kilometer from the consulate died approximately 7 hours after the attack began. Now, Liz Cheney will join me in our next segment to ask some very serious questions about why forces were not deployed to save their lives and whether or not it's possible that the President of the United States went to bed on the night of September the 11th knowing that Americans were under siege and fighting for their lives in Libya. And we'll have more on that with Liz Cheney ahead. But first, here in studio to talk about these developments and how they could, in fact, impact this election, the author of the new New York Times bestseller. It's called Mugged, Racial Demagoguery from the 70s to Obama. Ann Coulter is here. How are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you, Sean?
All right. Now we've got the proof. Now the question is why and what happened. Why did they lie? Why did they lie repeatedly? What are they trying to hide here?
Right. Well, for one thing, I think it's becoming clearer and clearer that this guy is just in way over his head and seems to really think that as he campaigned and as he seemed to believe when he went on his apology tour, that just him being in the White House would make the rest of the world love us. And, of course, there's the point you made, that he has made the argument. Democrats have made this argument for a long time, this whole hysteria over where's Osama during the Bush administration. And remember, Bush famously said, I don't really think that much about Osama, which Of course you don't. It's not like the terrorists are going to lay down their arms and love America if we kill this one guy. I mean, it was great. We're all for it. But it's more than just Osama bin Laden.
It's a lot more.
But that is not the liberal line on this. And so we were supposed to believe that the killing of Osama bin Laden, that's it. We can all go home. And finally, one fourth point that a lot of people have pointed out, the Democrats did spend an awful lot of time gloating about the killing of Osama bin Laden just a few weeks before at their convention.
You know, and this is the thing. They knew on day one, the emails,
Yep.
You're not in the Situation Room unless you know that there's a crisis. Then it adds a lot more emphasis to the president flying out to Vegas to raise money. Then it raises, emphasis. He goes on Letterman, tells Letterman it's associated with this video. Then he goes on The View and tells Joy Behar 2 weeks later that we can't say for sure. We're still investigating.
No, it's part of the liberal outlook here that they never will blame the jihadists themselves. It's always some hick American to blame. It's the pastor down in Florida. It's the guy who makes the movie trailer out in California, who, by the way, is still being detained as we speak. He'll be released sometime after the election, at least by the time Romney's inaugurated.
Let's look at some of what they told us now that we know that, in fact, they knew. They knew everything within hours of the attack, and the White House knew, and we have the proof. So when is the media going to call them out? And should we see this video, because it's all been recorded, what happened in Benghazi, should we see it before the election? Watch some of their excuses.
We absolutely reject its content and message. To me personally, this video is disgusting and reprehensible.
What sparked the recent violence was the airing on the internet of a very hateful, very offensive video.
Although we had nothing to do with the video, we find it offensive. It's not representative of America's views.
It was a crude and disgusting video. Sparked outrage throughout the Muslim world.
It began spontaneously in Benghazi. It was a spontaneous reaction to what had just transpired in Cairo as a consequence of the video.
He didn't say anything about the crude and disgusting crucifix submerged in urine that was just recently put back in a New York museum. Just a side note. But listen to the excuses they're telling.
Yes, I claimed there was also a Muhammad submerged in urine, hoping that the museum officials would come out and deny it. Well, one thing about I think it's worth saying the email story is a big enough story that even the non-Fox media, by and large, is doing a pretty good job, not NBC. The excuse that keeps being run on MSNBC is Hillary saying, well, you can't believe something because it's posted on Facebook. Well, but it isn't just it's not just the posting on Facebook, and even the posting on Facebook, usually when there's a false confession or claim to a terrorist attack, it has to come days later, not as it's happening.
Right.
And moreover, it wasn't just that. If you read through the emails, the mob surrounding the embassy and then going after our ambassador and other Americans, they had a shocking number of small arms. This wasn't just a rowdy movie protest.
Yeah, they actually came in with rocket-propelled grenades. I don't think they just happened to be there spontaneously.
And the White House is watching this from the drone
in real time.
Right.
In real time. And the video exists. That I have confirmed. All right. Let me ask you, Donald Trump today comes out with a challenge. The left is melting down over this. What I think is a simple, for $5 million, think about this. President Obama can redistribute Donald Trump's money to charity, children's hospitals, cancer research, inner city kids that could use a park. Watch the challenge.
President Obama is the least transparent president in the history of this country. There's never been anything like it. I have a deal for the president, a deal that I don't believe he can refuse, and I hope he doesn't. If Barack Obama opens up and gives his college records and applications, and if he gives his passport applications and records, I will give to a charity of his choice, Inner City Children in Chicago, American Cancer Society, AIDS research, anything he wants, a check immediately for $5 million. $5
million. College transcripts, application, passport. done. Donald, offer it to me. You got whatever you want. Why wouldn't the president do this? He can redistribute wealth.
No, that's right. I totally love it. It's completely showboating, but I support Donald Trump in this, particularly because of this Gloria Allred trying to dig up, in the classic Obama campaign style, as described in my book, Guilty, dig up sealed divorce records. And, of course, the lovely, charming Mormon married to Ann Romney does not have divorce records.
I guess he didn't have an affair or sexual harassments on his resume, so this is what we're left with.
Yes, and by the way, aren't you glad our nominee isn't Newt Gingrich right now? But all you have on Mitt Romney is he testified on the value of Staples stock when the head of Staples was getting divorced. But the point is, even as irrelevant and stupid as it is, Democrats are always pulling this. Obama most of all. Remember that drunk driving charge of George Bush's dropped a few days before the election? That cost him votes. And so we need somebody like Donald Trump on our side.
I wonder, and if they're going to accuse Romney of wanting dirty air and water and killing a woman, would they use the military as an October surprise? We'll deal with that coming up.
Yes, they will.